Welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 44. This is your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boy, Jake. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah, he's filling in for Jeff, and Kevin is running a little late. His son had a baseball game that went, I think, into extra innings, and so he had to stay a little bit late. So he'll be jumping on when he gets back from that. This podcast episode is presented to you by Shy City Sports. If you're interested in all things Chicago sports, this is your place. Go check out all the forums, the great podcasts, shycitysports.com. Let's do a little quick weekly recap. So we came off of a great sweep of the Padres in the middle of the week. Game 1 Monday. We talked about that last week. Cole Stewart got the call up. Cubs won 7-2. That was a fun day. Big dingers. And then game 2, Cubs won 4-3. Game 3, Cubs won 6-1. And you had to love Craig Kimbrell that last game, or the game that they won 4-3, just closing the door. That was some of the nastiest I've seen out of Kimbrell in that game, closing the door. And Alzolay again continued to look good in game 3. Then we headed out west. This series, I mean, anytime you go out west, and I have this little stat, Cubs have not won a series in San Francisco since 2013, not counting the 2016 playoff series. They have not won a series in San Francisco since 2013. They did avoid the sweep on Sunday, but game 1, Giants won 7-2. Game 2, Giants won 8-5. Game 3, Giants won 4-3. When you thought they were going to make a comeback in that game with Longoria and Crawford running into each other, if that ball could have squeaked through there, Javi would have scored, tied that game up, but they couldn't get her done. And then game 4 yesterday, Cubs won 4-3. Highlights from that series, of course, Jock leading off game 1 with a dinger. He had a couple dingers. I think he liked being back in the West Coast. Davies, Arrieta, and Stewart struggled pitching. We really had to rely on the bullpen. Hayward got hurt again, but Bryant helped us out, helping Dirty Craig out in that last inning on Sunday, saving a run that, I mean, that ball, if that gets by him, that's a guy in scoring position with nobody out to lead off that inning. But KB came up huge, and we'll get into wisdom here in a second. But man, going out west, do you like those West Coast games there, Jake?
I'm torn. I think first of all, Oracle Park, I think, is arguably the most beautiful park in baseball. I mean,
yeah,
we're spoiled by Wrigley, right? It's a haven for baseball, the national landmark now. But there's something about Oracle. I'm a cooler weather guy, and seeing the fans in like sweatshirts in June on a night game, like that kind of appeals to me. And then McCovey Cove, and obviously the history of Bonds hitting dingers out there. It's become a storied place. It's not that old a park, but I'm not as much a late night guy as I used to be. I don't like waiting to watch my Cubbies play. It was, especially last week when the series started, it was really difficult to be patient. And then to be treated to the games that we were treated to, it was kind of rough as well, like to wait all day and then be let down, especially in those first 2 games. Of course it's inevitable they've got to travel out west. I'd rather see a series at Coors because it's, Mountain West time. There's an hour closer to us in the Central. That makes it a little bit more bearable. You got more balls flying around the park there too. But yeah, I like the Giants as a franchise historically. We've got the Dodgers out there, Padres, obviously, not including the AL teams. It's fun. It's fun to go out there because you kind of get the feeling after we swept the Padres, like maybe they have the same thing in reverse when West Coast teams come out to the Midwest or the East Coast. So maybe it's just fair, provides a little parity for the game. But yeah, I enjoyed it despite the outcome of a 3-1 losing series.
I would like to know the stats on the records this year, especially when I was thinking about, and I was talking to Kevin even today about this, of like, here are the Cubs went all the way out to west. They didn't have a stop like in Colorado. They went all the way from Central all the way out west, and they struggled the first 3 games. What did the Padres do when they went from West Coast to the Central? They struggled, and Cubs swept them. What the records are for teams that like are having to travel that, because think about this. They haven't done it, probably traveled that much. None of these players have probably in a year with the pandemic happening, travel being shut down, jet lag hitting in. Like they haven't experienced this. They aren't used to that travel. Like I bet you that plays a factor this year. Just think if you're the New York Mets and you have to travel all the way across to San Diego, like that I would love to see how they fare their first 3 games or 2 games over in the West Coast. Like it's going to affect some teams, and I think it really affected the Cubs, and vice versa. It affected the Padres when they came to Chicago to get their bearings right the first couple of games.
Yeah, that was something that I was thinking about too, was the lack of travel last year and keeping everything as far as I remember, like in the same time zone, like Cincinnati, Cleveland on the East Coast, and Pittsburgh, but within an hour. And I feel like that. I listened to the broadcasts pretty actively, if not for the game itself, but for Boog and JD's banter, which was great this weekend. But yeah, I feel like they didn't really talk about that very much. I feel like they didn't mention. Yeah, I'm sure it was talked about, but they could have made a bigger point about that. At the same time, then you risk giving them an excuse for playing poorly, which I think is warranted. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to look at the statistics of teams traveling across the country at the end of the season and those cross-country road trips, what the records are versus years previous when they were more used to travel.
And here it was a kind of a matchup of 2 division leading teams. You had the Cubs, Giants. Giants are in first place, surprising everybody in the Western Division. They're ahead of the Dodgers. They're ahead of the Padres. And you're like, okay, who does the San Francisco team have? You recognize Crawford. He's been there for a while. Yeah, you remember Longoria with the Tampa Bay. He's struggled a bit. He's played better this year and played decent last year. And then you have Posey. Posey is back healthy. So you recognize those 3. Season. And then the rest of the guys, you're like, who is it? Lamont Wade comes up and hits a dinger lead off the game yesterday. And you're like, who the hell is this guy? Like, who are these guys? They're just raking, hitting nukes into McCovey Cove. Like, that was, I think, the frustrating thing is like, I don't watch a lot of West Coast teams, so I don't necessarily know who they are. I know who they are now. I definitely know who they are now.
But I think that's kind of how it is for most fans, even fans that are plugged in like you and I think. Well, I'm going to stop myself because I want to ask you something, or kind of pose something, I guess I should say. Coming into this season, you look at the Giants and the Cubs, and they're in very similar positions. They've got a lot of players' contracts expiring. I'm not sure about all the veterans. I know Brandon Crawford's contract, I believe, is expiring. I'm not sure about everybody else.
He's up this year. At the end of this year, Crawford's
okay.
Up.
So I don't know about Longoria and Posey, but I think if you look at the teams, those 2 teams coming into the season, the national consensus is probably they're not going to be competitive and they're going to be sellers at the deadline. And look at them coming into the season. They're leading their respective divisions. And they got some, for the Cubs because of injuries, but then for the Giants because that's their kind of analytics department, getting these guys that no one's heard of and playing. But what's the one thing, Mitch, that these 2 teams, where they differ? What was the thing this weekend? Can you point out what was the biggest disparity that one team had that the other didn't?
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, this is not in the
notes. Is there a right or is there a wrong answer? I mean,
I think there's a right answer. If you think about it for a second. It's the glaring hole for the Cubs. That's the giveaway.
Solid pitching from 1 through 5.
The rotation. Yeah. I mean, you look at the Giants rotation right now, and some of them are like Gossman's probably performing a little over his head. I didn't look at his expected statistics, but he's been lights out.
We're 7-0 now.
Oh my God. he shut down, I think 14. I think it was like 14 Cubs in a row it got to, and then Anthony DeSclafani, who I think he was on the Reds just before.
Yeah, he was on the Reds.
So they pick him up, and he was not bad for the Reds the last couple seasons, but he's really picked it up. And then Alex Wood, who when he's healthy is going to be a solid pitcher. So they've got something going here, thanks to their starting pitching and thanks to the resurgence of these veterans, man. Like Evan Longoria is hitting the crap out of the baseball. I mean, he's like, you look at his StatCast page, he's in the 90+ percentile for basically everything on there. There's a lot of red, and good for him, man. I mean, Boog and JD talked about it early in his career. He looked like he might've been on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and then he just kind of fell off, and here he is, 35 years old, and he's back on the board.
Yep. And then game 2, he runs into Brandon Crawford and back on the injured list.
That would have been such a Cubs way to win, right? That I was like, I felt so bad for Dubon. I was like, man, this poor guy. He was botching these plays. It sucks.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some highlights of actually the good things that happened in the series. And if we could highlight one guy, man, it is Patrick Wisdom. And I don't want to crown him MVP. I don't want to say because Cubs have had these guys throughout the years where they come on to the big leagues, they dominate for 5 games. I remember Jake Fox. You remember and it's I look at Patrick Wisdom as this is who Mike Olt should have been.
Totally.
These are but he's killing it right now, and he is hitting that fastball. I would say, I think out of his 7 home runs, they're all on fastballs, which is good for this team because we're not a fastball hitting team, but he's hit a lot. I think yesterday it was 2 fastballs that he got from Cueto one was up. But his stat line right now, 13 games and 36 plate appearances, he's batting .412, 1.1 WAR. Dude is just killing it. You got to love Patrick Wisdom, what he brings to this team. I want to be realistic in my expectations with him. Is he filling the need at third base that we kind of lost with having Bodie there and having that? And I mean, we've allowed Chris Bryant to play every position, but you saw even in yesterday's game, the last 2 at bats, all they threw Wisdom was off speed stuff, and they got him out twice. So hopefully Wisdom can adjust with this, but man, he's the first Cubs player with 7 home runs in his first 13 games since Lee Walls in 1958. And don't forget, Patrick Wisdom would have had 8 home runs. If you remember back last Saturday, he destroyed a ball, but the wind was blowing in 30 miles an hour and knocked it down.
Yeah.
Or else you have 8
I remember
home
thinking
runs.
that. I was like, damn.
And there is Kevin. So
Howdy.
Kevin is just joining us. How are you, Kevin?
Well, had a crazy baseball game. Whew.
Was there a fight?
No fights. No fights. The rule they have is you don't start a new inning after 90 minutes. So 2 minutes before that, they started the 6th, and then they were down by 3, scored 5 runs, gave up 1 run at the bottom of the inning, and won it.
Well, there
It was
you go.
pretty crazy. Whew.
Did you have your
Jake?
son with no shirt underneath his jersey so he could be like Patrick Wisdom, since that's what we were talking about right now?
Absolutely. That's every time with him.
Starting him young. I'm good, Kevin, man. I was saying to Mitch, I'm happy to be back on, and actually I'm rocking the jersey no undershirt tonight.
There you go.
Nice.
Patrick
Nice.
Wisdom. So
A little wisdom going tonight.
yeah, gotta keep the vibes light.
Yeah, man. He's been so fun to watch. Have you checked? Is he taking over KB for the Cubs third baseman on the All-Star ballot?
I have a feeling he's not added yet. I bet he's not added yet.
He's
Right.
not. I don't think he's added. But I don't know. Right now,
I bet he stays at third base eligibility since the voting started, which is apparently he's not. They showed in the broadcast yesterday he's not even on the Cubs depth chart as an infielder anymore. Which, hey, after the play he made yesterday, whatever. We're lucky to have solid defensive options at third that he can play outfield, and lucky that he's got the versatility to do so.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to say that I think Patrick Wisdom is a better version of Yerman Mercedes. I'm just going to say that to all of those White Sox fans.
Those are big words, man.
Yep.
Hey, he's fallen off lately. Mercedes is kind of fallen off. Well, Wisdom trajectory is going up. So
I'm going to nerd out on those numbers really quick.
I'm pretty sure that Patrick Wisdom could take Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul at the same time.
Yeah, no question.
And I am pretty sure that he has a better home run rate right now than Mark McGwire when he was on the Cardinals. 13
Absolutely.
games.
I'll take your word for it.
Just
Absolutely. We'll start that fight.
He does have more home runs currently right now than all these MLB players. Alex Bregman, Mookie Betts, they both have 5. Trevor Story has 5. Francisco Lindor, 5. Rizzo only has 5. Eric Hosmer, 5. Tony Pham, 4. Soler, if you remember that guy, ex-Cubby, 4. He had a lot of bombs in 2019. Gleyber Torres, he only has 3. Patrick Wisdom has 7. Should be 8. So.
Should be 8.
Should be 8. But dude is just on fire, and just put him in the lineup every day until the flame burns out, I guess.
Yeah, totally ride the hot hand. And I wanted to say too, I was doing some looking on StatCast. I'm a huge StatCast guy, but total nerd. He did hit one of the home runs off of a Cueto slider. So that's good. But you also got, like, look at the eye test. I mean, yesterday wasn't the first time I've seen him whiff on like meatball sliders down the middle of the plate. Just could not adjust to the off speed. So you got to think, if the Cubs hitting, I mean, if I post he's doing his job, they're dissecting that, and they're making sure that he's keenly aware of that. I don't want to put any water on a fire. Okay. I don't want to be a wet blanket. All right. I am 100% on board the Wisdom train right now, but I do want to caution Cubs fans. Don't fall too hard, because we've already got a couple examples of guys like Wisdom coming out of nowhere. I mean, you mentioned Yermin Mercedes. He had a brutal May. He batted, like, I think I saw it, like 221 or something like that after a super hot April. And then before that, who was the sensation to start the season was Akil Baddoo.
Yep.
The thing with the difference between Baddoo and Wisdom is Badoo's only 22 years old. He still has a very high ceiling. Patrick Wisdom has a long minor league track record. We kind of know what he is. We kind of know he's a boomer bust player, which plays in the modern MLB, but can he adjust to bring the strikeout rate low enough and put enough balls in play that he's continuing to hit home runs? Listen, the guy, especially because we're banged up, I'm glad this guy's getting the opportunity. Play him every single day. I'm glad he's in the lineup, batting cleanup tonight. Pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
And by all accounts, he looks to be a great guy too, and that makes him easier to root for. So yeah, and to top it all off, he was a Cardinal.
Yeah,
he comes up for the Cubs and he's doing this.
First round pick from the Cardinals.
Yep, yeah, love it. Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm going to be at Friday's game. I really hope he plays against the Cardinals. He has to be looking forward to playing against the Cardinals. And he has that one circled. And if he could hit a dinger on Friday, that'd be so good. I don't know if you listened to the Locked On podcast with Joe Kilgallen. He actually said that he would slate Wisdom in a 2-hole and have Bryant behind him to protect him a little bit, so he would get more fastballs. Because you don't want to walk him to get to Bryant and have a guy on first base with Bryant up to bat. They might see more fastballs. I was like, actually, that's might be a good slot for Wisdom in that 2-hole. Oh, that might be something that I don't know if Rossi's thinking that way, but I thought it was a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Speaking of all the dingers, our dinger pick update. Jeffrey is making a little bit of a comeback. Slowly but surely, Jeffrey is coming back. I still have the lead at 14. Kevin has 13, and Jeff has 8. He was, I think, at 5 to start the week.
I think so. I think I got 1 this week. I don't think you got any, Mitch.
Nope.
And Jeff got, I think, a solid 3. He's been making some smart picks. Might be coming back on that lottery train.
Yeah. Well, our Dinger picks are sponsored by Plate Crate. If you would like a Plate Crate, it's a subscription box service that gets sent to you monthly where you can get all your best baseball goodies. It's like Christmas every month. Use the code DINGERS for $10 off your subscription. Yeah. Hopefully Jeffrey can get back because he was looking. I mean, he was having Descalso numbers there for a while. So hopefully he can get back on track and catch us. But we talked about Wisdom, but there's some other guys on this team that have kind of really stepped up and kind of the next man in mentality, kind of that like Patriots mentality of like, hey, next guy up, you got to be ready to play. We have Alcantara. He's kind of played a little bit of second base, a little bit of shortstop. I know Cubs Twitter really wants to see him get more playing time. And I mean, at Iowa this year, he was hitting 328, 481, 459. With the Cubs and 15 play appearances, he's batting 429, 467, 857. I mean, he had a couple triples early on. He's done pretty good at the plate. My one thing with Alcantara is, and a lot of people want him to start over Sogard.
Yep.
And everybody's just ragging on Sogard.
Well, I'm not ragging on Sogard, but I want him to start over
I
Sogard.
might be ragging on Sogard.
my only thing with that whole thing, and I get Sogard is struggling right now at the plate. He hasn't really produced a lot, but if you look at Sogard as a pinch hitter, he's batting like 358, I think, as a pinch hitter on the Cubs team. Sogard has a role on this team. Whether people like it or not, I think Sogard has a decent role. And one thing with Sogard is you know what you're getting. He's been in the league for a number of years, and his stats are pretty consistent. He's a consistent guy. You know what you're going to get, and I think Ross likes that. A veteran guy in the clubhouse. You know he's a pretty good clubhouse guy. He gets along with everybody, and you know what you're going to expect. Alcantara, you don't. He's kind of a wild card. I mean, he got DFA'd by the Tigers. If you're getting DFA'd by the Tigers, there's something that they don't like when one of the worst teams in baseball DFAs you. So, I mean, yeah, he's doing well. I would love to see him get more playing time. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, for me, I totally get. We were talking about this in the carpool like we always do, and I totally get why the Sogard's position on the team, and I'm not necessarily saying to cut him, get rid of him, but I kind of want them to ride Alcantara. How do you say his
Alcantara?
name? I think I heard like four different ways it was said over broadcast in the last like week, but Alcantara. I kind of want them to ride with him for a little bit just to see exactly what he is. Give him a whole bunch of games, like let's see what it is. And if it doesn't work out, then yeah, sure. I also think we've been bitten by like the sweetheart bug. Every guy has stepped in and done something and been fantastic. I mean, Duffy came in and rocked it. Marisnik has been great. Wisdom is going nuts right now. And it's like, okay, this guy, let's give him a chance and see what he's got too. So I think that's part of my thinking too, is like, who knows? He could be just as good. Let's give him a shot. I don't know, Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I was listening to are we okay to mention other podcasts? I know you mentioned
we
Joe's
support other podcasts.
Fantastic. I was listening to Brett Taylor on the Athletics podcast, and he made the joke that the Tigers have been so bad the last, however many seasons that they're accumulating all of this young talent through the draft and international free agency. If they have so many young guys, they don't know what to do with them. So obviously, like, that's not the reason why they got rid of Alcantara. But then he caveated that with saying, we've seen these guys, like, 2020 was a lost season for a lot of players. And I mentioned Baду earlier in the podcast, another guy that Detroit lost to the Rule 5 draft. Detroit picked up from Minnesota, I should say. I totally agree. I think that you've got to get Alcantara playing time while guys are injured. You have to play him every day to see what you have in him. Give him as many at-bats as you possibly can until guys get healthy. So that way, when we're reassessing in the offseason, that's also assuming that guys continue to, like, guys are going to come back from the IL and guys are going to go back on the IL. But whenever we have a chance, slot Alcantara in until he proves that he's not major league ready or he is. We have to understand what the known quantity is there. And Mitch, I agree. I think that Sogard, I mean, I'm looking at his numbers right now. He looked really good. He is batting .333 in his pinch hitting appearances. I'm trying to figure out where he ranks with his WRC plus this year. But I saw his career WRC plus is like 89 or either 89 or 81 for his career. That's pretty rough. I mean, that's like Albert Almora Jr. levels, if I dare say.
Well, he stuck around for a couple of years. So,
and listen, like I love Almora Jr. I still hope he figures it out, but I'm glad that he doesn't have to do it in a Cubs uniform. I'm glad that he can be somewhere else figuring it out. But I think Sogard's it's frustrating to see Sogard's name in the lineup right now when he is a known quantity. He has established career numbers. Yep. Alcantara does not. Let him figure it out. He's only 24 years old. Maybe he ends up being a viable piece for this Cubs team moving forward. Who knows? Sogard is not going to fit into future plans. He fits in right now. He is a good pinch hitter. Absolutely. But moving forward with this team and the state that it's in, you got to figure out what these unknown pieces are. You got to try to make them known quantities.
Yep. And Alcantara was like a headliner in the trade for the Cardinals to acquire Marcell Ozuna back in the day. So he got traded to the Marlins in that trade. So, I mean, he was one of the main pieces that the Marlins wanted for Marcell Ozuna. Now, Marcell Ozuna's now in his own little bit of trouble. So,
yeah.
But like we go from Alcantara, we now go to Ortega. Ortega was crushing the ball at Iowa, hitting a lot of dingers down there. We watched him went to a game when he hit one. 31 plate appearances, is only batting 148. I figure he might probably be, and I don't know who got sent down today. I didn't check because my son had a baseball game too when they brought Marisnik up. So there's a pitcher. So Ortega's still on the roster. I picture him being probably one of the next guys to be sent down if that happens.
Cole Stewart was optioned.
Cole Stewart was okay. So Cole Stewart got sent back down. He was the next guy. He stepped up his first game, Memorial Day, against the Padres. Pitched 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 base on ball, 2 Ks. Game 2 against the Giants didn't go so well. Only pitched 3 2/3 innings. Gave up 7 hits, 3 runs. Gave up 1 home run, 2 base on balls, 5 Ks. He was at 79 pitches through 3 innings. Like every single batter was going to a 3-2 count. So like I think that just hurt him. But I like his pitch stuff. His stuff has a lot of movement. He throws the ball hard. I think give him a little bit. He's kind of reminds me of like Jake Arrieta when he first came over. He spent a large majority of his time in Iowa that first season. He didn't come up, I think, until after the All-Star break that season when Jake first got traded over. So like I want him back at Iowa, still working on some things. Hopefully we can see him down the road because I do think he has a future with this Cubs team. What do you think, Jake?
I think it's totally fair to say. Yeah, I agree. I have heard the Arrieta comp. I think it might be a little generous, but again, we don't know. I mean, I think we got Arrieta, maybe it was like 28. Stewart is 26. It's been hammered home that he was a first-round draft pick the year that Bryant was drafted. So he's got that prospect pedigree. And, we've heard that he's a freak athlete. He got recruited to play football, a quarterback at A&M where he played baseball. It was tough watching that Giants game because it really felt like he was laboring. I haven't looked at the batted ball data to see if he was giving up hard contact. I don't remember feeling like he was giving up like screamers by any means. But it just felt like maybe he couldn't really find the plate when he needed to or get guys out when he needed to. I agree, Mitch. Give him some more run at AAA. Hopefully he proves something. I mean, like I said, the guy's 26 years old. He's got the pedigree. Maybe we found something, hopefully. I mean, and if not, like I've got all the faith in the world in the pitch lab. The stuff that they're doing right now and the prospects that we're bringing up, this guy's still moldable, hopefully. So hopefully he's something that we can make something out of.
So who do you think is going to be some of the guys that Horner is getting closer. We have Marisnik that just got back. We still have guys that are going to be coming off. Justin Steele is going to be coming back pretty soon. Who do you think some of the guys that are going to be sent down?
Oh, there's been so much movement. I'm like, I don't even know who's on the roster right now. Like, I was just gonna look it up. Cubs.
Because Wick got sent down when they brought up Corey Abbott.
Yep.
I unless they're going to give Corey Abbott a spot start here, I don't know what his role in the bullpen is, because the bullpen is pretty, like, even with losing Steele, the bullpen has still been lights out and still been like, they have their guys in their innings. Tepera, they know when he's going to pitch. Nance, you know when he's going to pitch. You know when Chafin's going to come in the 8th. Kimbrel's got the 9th. So they're pretty established. So I don't know what role Abbott's, and I would rather him be in Iowa and getting innings than sitting in the bullpen not pitching. So that's just me.
Yeah, that's kind of, I assume he's going to get a spot start here. I mean, to have him come up, unless they were really worried that Hendricks wasn't going to be able to go all game or go 6 innings or something. I don't know. It kind of seemed a little interesting, that move. Looking at the roster, I'm guessing Ortega and Alcantara are kind of the next guys out, when folks kind of start coming back. But kind of as Jake said, you never know who else is going to go on the IL between then and now. I mean, we've got Javi and Jock dealing with stuff right now, so it's who knows? Right. They could be here for another month.
Well, I will say the Iowa Cubs definitely need them, because they have been on a huge losing streak since all their players are up with the big leagues. Like, I think they've been on like a 5-game losing streak, and like
right. But I think the bullpen for Iowa is still shoving and doing really well.
Well, when they took Cole Stewart, they took Corey Abbott. Like, their starting pitching is so depleted, and then
Yeah, the other day, what is his name? He always asks questions on the compound.
Scott Effross.
Scott Effross. He started because Abbott got called up that day, and he's like usually a reliever or whatever. Like it was yep, we're gonna have you start. Welcome to Iowa. Here you go.
Yeah,
I heard he's throwing sidearm now too. They mentioned on the compound, and Dakota said it looks good. Which, hey, to have a sidearmer in the system is that bodes pretty well. That could be a cool experiment.
Speaking of sidearm, who is the guy on Saturday? Their closer, the Giants closer,
Rogers.
Tyler Rogers.
Yeah. It's like 87, 85. It's just the funky delivery. I mean, I remember we had a pitcher on our college team that threw like that, and I hated facing him in like scrimmages, because you're like, what the? I'm not used to seeing this. Get out of here.
It looks like it's coming right at your head every time.
And it like comes up. Like, I mean, it's great to have one of those guys in your system, see what you got. I mean, that different changing the eye angle, like it and I like that they had him wearing white shoes with white shoelaces to like hide the ball longer. It's like he was doing it all.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh man.
Well, we were speaking about starting pitching a little bit, and you brought up the one thing that is separating the Cubs and the Giants is that starting pitching. We have a good one. We have Alzolay too. Davies is kind of turned around. You can still kind of trust Davies to give you a good outing. And then our 4 and 5, Arrieta has kind of been every other, yo-yoing back and forth, and especially since coming off the injured list, hasn't really given you the quality start and the trust that he's going to go out there and at least give you 4 or 5 good innings. He's been running into a lot of trouble, putting a lot of guys on base. People have been hitting the ball extremely hard off of him. Even like the other night, he first inning pitched really, really well. I was pretty confident. I was like, okay, Jake's going to do it tonight. And then inning 2 and 3, man, he just got rocked and hit balls hard. Yeah. Like I think 2 went to McCovey Cove and so, and then you have just our other spot. We had Cole Stewart step in. What are we going to do with that end of the rotation? Who are some of the guys that you think, Jake, that we should maybe be looking to add? And I know at the beginning of the season that add word wasn't in our vocabulary. It was
Right.
who are we going to sell? Now we're looking at who are we going to add to this rotation, maybe via trade at the trade deadline. Who do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I want to say thank you. You gave me a great list of names to look at, Mitch, getting me prepared for this. I want to start, though, by looking internally.
Okay.
I have really, really liked what we've gotten from Keegan Thompson so far. And the guy, he did get a spot start, right? I think he only went like a few innings.
Against the Dodgers.
Yeah. Oh, my God. He shoved in that game.
Yep.
Listen, give the guy another start. I thought, Kevin, you said that bringing up Abbott on Hendricks' start day was an interesting move, right? I kind of expected when Hendricks was laboring that there might be a piggyback situation, and he did get a couple innings of work or an inning of work. But I think the next move is giving Thompson a spot start. Joe said on his pod on Locked In today, I think we don't know how long Williams is going to be out with the appendectomy. We don't know how long that takes to recover from it. I don't think it's that long, but I also haven't had an appendectomy, so I don't know.
Right.
If there's room to give Thompson a spot start, do it. And if it works, I say kind of ride it out. The one intriguing thing, and we talk about the bullpen and we talk about the arms in the minor leagues, we've got bullpen options, but the thing that I see with Arrieta one last thing before we get into some buy options. Arrieta's a gamer. I mean, he's got that competitive edge. He wants to be a difference maker. I don't think it's going to be in the rotation anymore. I mean, he gave up, I'm looking at this right now. He gave up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batted balls in that game over 105 miles an hour. That is insane. And you could see it. The guy was getting ripped. Now, Kevin, I see you taking a breath. He did say that he got sick from whatever he ate for lunch that day. Listen, we just had a stomach bug in our apartment here. I could not imagine throwing up and then going to play to do anything, let alone pitch in a Major League Baseball game. So we'll give him another start. But if the wheels fall off, I think it could be an intriguing bullpen option if he's willing to do that. I don't know what the interior workings are of that. Just something to keep in mind. Getting into these names that you gave me, Mitch, to go over. I'm just going to rattle them off here really quick and then kind of hammer in some points on ones that I think. So we've got Austin Gomber of the Rockies, Jose Barrios of the Twins, Mike Minor of the Royals, Matthew Boyd of the Tigers, John Gray also of the Rockies, Kyle Gibson of the Rangers, and then everybody's favorite target, Max Scherzer of the Nationals.
Yep.
As if I need to say that he's on the Nationals. If you don't know who Max Scherzer is, turn the podcast off and read some books. I'll kind of like Austin Gomber. So he was one of the guys that the Rockies got from the Cardinals in the Arenado deal. I kind of think that they hold on to him a little bit longer. He doesn't seem to me like a guy that the Cubs should be going after. He's been fine. Like you've got his stat line here: 4.12 ERA, 25% K rate, plays pretty nicely. 8% walk rate is fine. Started 12 games, 0.9 WAR. It's intriguing, and I know he was a top prospect. I believe he was one of the top prospects in the Cardinal system once upon a time, but I'm not super interested there. Jose Barrios would be spectacular, especially as you write down that he's Javi's brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. That would be awesome to pull him over, but you'd have to give up a haul. This Twins team is probably looking to sell very, very shortly here, and they're going to expect big names for a guy who I think has at least still one more year left of control. So as intriguing as he would be, I think the prospect cost would be a little bit too high. I don't see the Cubs going after that. Mike Minor is a guy that's been up and down. He's shown some glimpses of looking really good. I think a couple of years ago on the Rangers, he looked really great. Started as a relief pitcher, came in and was starting by the end of the season. Good veteran presence. I think you can get probably some good innings out of him. Not super intriguing. Matthew Boyd is a guy that I'd be looking at. If you're looking at someone who's maybe a little under the radar on a team who's probably going to be selling, still rebuilding, Boyd's the guy. He's got another year of arbitration, so we get him for 2 years. I think that's kind of what you want to be looking for right now. If we're going to be selling pieces, try to get a deal of somebody that's it's not a half season rental. I like Boyd. I think it'd be really, really interesting to see what the pitch lab could do with him. He's pitching to a 3.9 ERA with a 19% K rate right now. You like that. You'd like to see the K rate a little bit higher, especially in today's age. But hey, maybe the pitch lab could unlock something with him. So he's probably number one on my list if I'm being realistic. John Gray is another name that's been tossed around a lot. But then you also hear the caveat of he's pitching to a 6.75 road ERA and allowing a 538 slugging percentage on the road as well. It is
worth good when you play for the Rockies. That's not good.
Yeah, how do you have that reverse home road split? Like maybe the statisticians need to look into that a little bit more and realize, because that's a whole other can of worms. But like there's
after getting Tyler really Chatwood, intriguing. I think we just stay away from any Rockies pitching.
Yeah, let's we'll take.
Which somebody when I posed this question on Twitter, somebody put Tyler Chatwood, and I about blocked him for a little bit because I get it. He's doing well in the bullpen for the Blue Jays, but we'll pass.
I mean, the Blue Jays have done a really good job with kind of reclaiming some of these pitching prospects. Yeah. I mean, you look at their bullpen, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it seems like they've been doing really well. They've got a lot of options to close out games, and Chatwood is kind of one of those guys. He's got to be in their circle of trust, right? Which he never really quite was in Chicago. He kind of scratched it, was kind of knocking on the door, but he wasn't let in. Kyle Gibson has had, spurts of being good, a solid pitcher. It's just like, I think the big thing that you want dependability, you want innings pitched. 2018, 196 and 2/3 innings pitched. That's a full season of work. That's really great. Pitched to a 3.62 ERA. That's also 3 years ago. Yes, he's pitching to a 2.06 ERA this year. He has an xERA of 3.15. Okay. I like that. Kyle Gibson. I don't know. Is he a guy? Or is he just a guy?
Might be. And the Cubs like to trade with the Rangers.
They have.
It's true. It's true. We've worked out some decent deals with the Rangers. We got a little ace from the Rangers, or at least our current ace.
Well, even look at you brought up the Tigers. The Cubs made some deals with the Tigers last year. It's like those are the two teams have guys that interest me a little bit more on this list, and Jed has some familiarity with working with them. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I think that's totally worth pointing out. And I'm sorry I rambled. I kind of wanted to get through it and then talk about it all at once. I mean, listen, Max Scherzer would be fantastic. But look what the Nationals did 2 seasons ago. They're counted as completely out of it and come back and then win the World Series. Mike Rizzo's a smart GM in that front office. He's never going to count that team out. They still have they've got Luis Garcia. Is Carter Kieboom ever going to figure it out? Who knows? And Victor Robles, they've got guys where it's it feels like they should be able to put it together. But if not, they do have intriguing pieces to sell off, including former Cub Kyle Schwarber. Obviously, we don't need him, but as much as I love Schwarber, I'm saying we got Jock now. We're set. Scherzer would be killer, man. I mean, this is similar to instead of trading for Quintana, if we traded for Verlander, that's that kind of move. Yep. So this could be totally a thing where it's in 2021, instead of selling off the team, the Cubs trade for who was the guy? They trade for Matt Boyd and they get a Jose Quintana type guy. Coincidentally, Boyd's a lefty, I believe, too.
Yep.
And they could have traded for Scherzer. And so there's an interesting, story right there, right? That's kind of developing. So I don't know. I think it's, clearly as we've kind of hammered home already, pitching is what's necessary. There are some intriguing options out there. We got to get through this month. And if the team plays 500 baseball with this strength of schedule this month, I'd be very happy coming out at the end of the month. And maybe we're looking to buy one of those guys. I'd say Boyd's my pick. Gibson is intriguing, but he's kind of wishy-washy. What do you guys think?
I look at this list like this. It's
You
a
put
list,
it together, so
it's like a list of a whole bunch of White Claws, and then one Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sue. I don't know if you're a beer drinker. Like I like IPAs.
Yeah.
And so you're like, and I'm from Northeast Iowa, know some of the guys with Toppling Goliath, but you're like, yeah, I would drink a White Claw. That'll get the job done, but it's definitely not a Pseudo Sue. It's definitely not a good IPA. So it's like, yeah, there's some good names on this list. Yeah, I would take Kyle Gibson. I would take Matthew Boyd, but are they really any different than a Cole Stewart? Are they really any different than a Corey Abbott, who we have hopefully building up, that's gone through our system, that's been a guy, Corey Abbott, he's a homegrown guy. Like, are they going to eat up innings that possibly these other guys could have? And I don't know, like Trevor Williams hasn't been, he pitched really well the last time he was out before he had to get taken out with the appendectomy. So like, I don't know. I do want to see them buy. I do want to see them make a statement to the players and a statement to the fans. Like, hey, we're in it this year. We're not giving up on this team. I think that makes a huge statement. I think the players need it. The players need to like, hey, we're behind you. We got you. So I don't know. Yeah, Max Scherzer, he's definitely the Pseudo Sue on this list. He's definitely the like.
I love that.
Yeah,
analogy. That's great.
That'd be really nice right now to have a Max Scherzer in this rotation. He would be.
I wouldn't mind
perfect.
a Pseudo Sue once every 5 days. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I would take,
right?
Yeah, I'd take that. So it's like, yeah, and like when I put this out to Twitter, I said like, hey, who's some guys that we should be going off after? And if you put Yu Darvish, I'm gonna like perma-block you. Like, please don't even bring it up. Like, so I don't know. Like,
that's what, wasn't it Joe Kilgallen? I think on Locked On, he was like, we could trade for pitcher. What if we traded Davies and some teenagers and we got Darvish?
Yep.
It was like too soon, dude.
Yeah. So I don't know. I do think the two names, Matthew Boyd, Kyle Gibson, those are some guys. One, just because like you look at their stat line, you look at their WAR, those are the only two guys that are like 1.4, 1.2, and then Scherzer is 2.1. All the other ones is like 0.8, 0.9. They're not giving you really much in the win column. A lot of their ERAs are right around where Trevor Williams is that. So it's like, I don't know what you're gaining by really going after those guys. And it might give up a prospect that could turn out to be something big in the future. So I don't know.
I think the one thing that I didn't hit in that super long rant was we just need a guy that can get 6, maybe into the 7th. We need to give this bullpen a break because this cannot happen. Like, God bless this bullpen. They have been phenomenal. They have saved us so many games. They've kept us in so many games. It's not going to stay like this. It can't. Bullpen arms are going to break down. They're being overworked. We just need to bring in a guy that we know we can get 6, 7 innings out of every time. And that's why Scherzer obviously is, you're going to get that from him. But these other two guys, maybe.
Well, let's move on and talk about with what we're going to do with Jason Hayward, because he's the other last topic that we wanted to discuss. Jake, I know you have a lot of information on Hayward. I mean, yeah, I love Jason Hayward. He did the speech. He helped us win a World Series. But I mean, I feel like his contract, we've paid his dues and got the 1.5 good years out of him that we need. I don't know if he has a role long term, but let's hear what you have to say on Jason Hayward.
Yeah, so I posed a question on Twitter the other day when Hayward came off the IL. I said, legitimately want to know how many of Hayward's at-bats end in a grounder to the right side. And I can't, spray charts for whatever reason on Fangraphs aren't working because of I've got a massive Twitter following, like 250, but nobody stepped up to answer my question. That was facetious, obviously. Follow me at Baseball Booge. But I searched it because I wanted to figure out. I literally just Google searched Jason Hayward spray charts, and I found one of the top results was a Reddit post from 2014, a Braves fan wondering the same thing. So this has been going on for at least 7 years, and it's not just Cubs fans that are seeing it. It is maddening to have Hayward up at the plate, and you almost know what's going to happen. Like, you can feel what's going to happen.
Like Saturday when the tying run is at third base and the winning run is at second base, and he rolls over to second base. Like, well, that was typical.
Yep.
Like that was expected.
Exactly. And then Sunday he struck out. He had pity on us. Instead of grounding out into a double play, or he struck out, which actually a ground out, if he could, that would, I think that was bases loaded, maybe first and third.
It was bases loaded in 1 out, because when he struck out, I was like, good, because Wisdom's up next. Hopefully he does something. Because I was like, he's going to roll into a double play here.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think that was the at bat that Wisdom struck out on a slider right down the middle, which we won't go further into that. Listen, I love what Jay Hay has done for this team. I love what Jay Hay has done for the city. I like the fact that he lived in Chicago during the offseason. I think speaks volumes about who this guy is. He is committed to being a beacon of hope and a leader in not just in this clubhouse, but in this community. And that's what Chicago needs. We need guys like that. We're a big market franchise, and we need faces like that in the community giving back. However, just because he's a great guy doesn't mean he's the greatest baseball player. Again, kind of going back to On to Waveland, which is the Athletic Cubs podcast. Sahadav Sharma talks a lot about Jason Hayward and his timing. His swing is keyed on timing. And you can tell when he's timing the ball up, where his swing's up correctly, when he's going opposite field and hitting line drives. The one thing, just the eye test, that's always bothered me, and what do you guys think? Hayward's swing to me has always looked kind of hitchy and just like really unnatural, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, like, you watch it, like, this guy's supposed to be a monster athlete, and he looks so uncomfortable at the plate. And it's like, it feels like, I was watching footage of his swing as I was doing research earlier today. It looks like he like opens his hips too soon.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It just feels like he's opening up too soon, and that would make sense why he's rolling over on all these ground balls to the right side. Pitch him anything on the outside corner, and if his timing's not right, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Now, that said, I do think that there is still a place for Hayward on this team. Obviously, we don't have a choice. No one's going to take on his contract. And he's still, I think there are a lot of intangibles that he brings to the game. He is a defensive replacement at this point. And I think you can double switch him if you're down in a couple runs, or if you're up a couple runs. That's the ideal. And that's when you bring him in as a defensive replacement. Because you look at our outfield across, Bryant is not an outfielder. He's done tremendously well in a pinch. Happ, I think Happ has passed the eye test this year. He seems to get good reads, good jumps on the ball. And Jock is definitely a step up defensively from Schwarber, at least, again, eye test, no stats right here. But yeah, Jay Hay and Wright with his arm is an improvement in the later innings if you have to hold a lead. Other than that, that's Jason's role for the rest of his career with the Cubs. I mean, people harp on it like, oh, what about the salary? We can't do anything about it. We got to eat it now. We're on the back end of the contract. We got the books clearing out at the end of this season, and hopefully we don't have to see the contract really being an albatross the next few years. I think it's 3 more years. Do we have him for 3 more years? 2 more years? I don't know. Too many years. And listen, I hate to harp on this guy because he has done so much for the team. I want to wrap it up with that. Like, he's a model player of how the game should be played and how you should be a teammate in baseball. And he is an incredible role model for young players. I just wish he could hit more consistently is all.
I found the stat that the slider rate to Jason Hayward in 2019, it was 14.4%. In 2020, it's 14.6%. Pitchers this year are throwing sliders to him at a career high of 22.7% rate to him. So the league has adjusted to Jason Hayward, and he adjusted because he was struggling in 2016-17, adjusted in 2019, had a decent year. 20 didn't have a horrible year, but now the league is adjusted. Now it's time for Hayward again to adjust again and make the adjustments. Because you're right, his swing does look hitchy. I don't think he has an athletic stance. He looks very like statuesque there. Like he just doesn't look natural. Like, just relax, buddy, relax. I don't think he's relaxed at the plate. Like, and his defensive value has kind of gone down like in the last year. Like, he's worse than 65% of the outfielders this year in 2021, like as a defensive player. Like, he doesn't have a great, I don't know. I
did hit on that. I looked at ultimate zone rating over the course of 150 games. Obviously that's projected right now. His user over 150 would be 8.8. And in the entire outfield, that would put him 12th overall in Major League Baseball. That's pretty good. Like, you'll take that. I mean, that's still top tier defense. For reference, number one is the Rays' Manuel Margot at 15.7, which I didn't realize he had that good of a glove. But his career average, Hayward's career average, is 12.5. His user over 150. So he's still a better defensive option than we have in the outfield, amongst the rest of the roster. But you're right. He's trending downward defensively as well.
What do you think, Kevin? Because I know we have a guy down in the minors that we could
right. That's kind of, I don't know. You were talking about him being a statue in the box, and it just made me think of Zobrist. Like, he needs to develop that like little thing to keep him engaged right before he swings. But yeah, Mitch, you've got, Brennan Davis is tearing it up. I mean, he's ridiculous down in South Bend already.
And we just had him on the podcast last week. So if you want to hear him speak, you can listen to last week's episode.
He's really funny. He threw a bunch of other guys under the bus for their golfing ability, and then they sniped at each other on Twitter. It was fun. So he's got a 17% walk rate, and he's batting .286 right now. I agree with you, Jake. Hayward's gonna be a bench defensive guy, and with these long contracts, you're gonna eat that in the latter half of their tenure. But I would love to see them bring someone like Brennan Davis up as the season progresses. Give him his time, have him take over. Imagine moving from Hayward to Davis in the outfield.
But we did make him promise that Davis had to make a stop in Des Moines so we could watch him for at least a little bit. So we made him promise.
Get that John Hancock while he's there, boys. Come on.
Yes, Yep. Right. That's true.
But yeah, let's look ahead. Obviously, the Cubs game has just started. Alzolay just has the bases loaded and nobody out, and just struck out Tatis. And so hopefully he can work out of this. He's up on Hosmer right now. With a look ahead, Alzolay is pitching tonight versus Weathers. Weathers is a good lefty. We did beat him last week. Davies versus Lament. Again, the Cubs got on Lament and got some runs and won that game. And then the matchup that I think everybody's looking forward to is Arrieta versus Darvish. I mean, that's gonna be emotional. It's gonna be a little bit like, come on, Arrieta, please give us a good outing here, or else you're gonna make this all look bad. And then, I mean, what the Cubs could do is they could call up all the teenagers that they got in the Yu Darvish trade and see how Darvish handles it facing the guys who he's actually traded for. I don't know.
That'd be ugly.
That'd be a slaughter. Yeah.
Here you go. Here's a 14-year-old. See how you can face against Yu Darvish. But yeah, so I mean, that's who we have going against the Padres. And then we have the big weekend series versus the Cardinals, who are really struggling. We need these games. We talk about West Coast trips, and we struggled. In this series against the Padres, we just need to salvage one win. I would take one win out of these three. Two great, but one, I still am okay with that going out west and handling the time change. When we come back against the Cardinals, We need to kind of just keep them down there in the cellar, keep them hurting. They've lost their best pitcher. They've lost two of their pitchers. Kim just went down this last start. So it's a time for the Cubs to get back home, get back comfortable, and get playing against NL Central teams, because you have them, then you'll have the Mets for 4 after that. So I'm excited to go to Wrigley on Friday and cheer loud and give the Cardinals heck as I'm in the stands. So, yeah.
Tell the Cardinals pitcher that his third grade teacher was right.
Yep. Yep, that's right. You got to get mentally in there. Don't just tell them you suck. You got to mentally destroy them.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm excited for that. It'll be my first time back at Wrigley, actually, since I ran a Spartan race there in October before the pandemic hit. So the last time I was in Wrigley Field, it was covered in snow. So
you got to know the stairs really well.
I got to know all the stairs real well. So I'm glad I won't have to run them all. But yeah, I'm excited to be the first time back in the friendly confines, the Federal Landmark, and cheer loud for the Cubs on Friday. That does it really for episode 44. Follow us on Twitter at Dinger Cubs. Join our Facebook group and our Instagram at Dinger Cubs as well. Thanks for joining us, Jake. It's great. We're trying to get Jake to be kind of a regular every so often, fill in when Kevin or Jeff misses. He might be jumping out a little bit more and giving us some insight and joining the Dinger podcast crew. So we're excited to have Jake on for tonight. So thanks for joining us tonight. It's great having you on. Great knowledge and great insight into the Cubs.
Thanks, Mitch. My pleasure, man. Enjoy the confines on Friday. I'm jealous.
I will.
Me too.
All right. Well, that does it for episode 44 of the Dingers podcast.